together, and he went out.
What was his attitude as he expressed it to you when you said, quote, "You can't do that," end quote, to give the key back, quote, have to get out of here," end quote?
He gradually became sheepish and apologetic. He was sorry. He didn't know he was upsetting to me. I don't know. He seemed to think it was a small prank at first, or me, even at second.
In the coming days and before you left for your sister's wedding toward the end of the week, did you see Morris again?
Yeah.
Were you still angry with him?
No. I mean, I don't know if I invited him over that night, but the next day, the 18th, I was gradually moving, packing up things and moving out of the apartment because I was planning, although not written in stone, but after my sister's wedding, I was going to go to New York and then come back there for a while. So I had an airline reservation from Houston to New York. And Morris knew that, and he was helping me pack up stuff and put it in the Honda.
When you say you were packing up and moving stuff out of the apartment, did you have any place to take your stuff?
I had over the year I had been there, I had gradually accumulated things. I don't know where they came from, but I had 5 of these big suitcases at Walmart. Walmart's most giant sized. And I was putting everything in there and putting those things in the car. And I planned on renting one of those mini storage places out on the west end of the island and leaving everything there before I left.
Had you done that yet?
No.
In fact, did you ever do that?
No.
So in the following week, and before you went to your sister's wedding, was this kind of a Morris make up to you, or you make up to Morris? Did you guys patch it up?
Well, I thought he had started acting reasonably. He was all upset about 9/11, and he would read the newspaper every morning. Every piece of information he could glean about that. But the rest of the week was, I came back here several times and went to the bank and looked at houses and stuff. And I guess I didn't start going to the eye doctor until the 22nd on Saturday. But I was back here, I think, 3 of those days.
Now, when did you leave to go to Houston for your sister's wedding, sister's son's wedding?
On Wednesday the 19th.
And is that when you checked into the Four Seasons?
Yes, sir.
So from the 19th through that weekend of the 23rd, which was Sunday, were you staying in the Four Seasons in Austin, Four Seasons in Houston?
Yes.
Did you come back to Galveston, though, during the day sometime?
I think I came back here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or just Thursday and Saturday. I know I came back several times. I looked at houses, and I started using this Bank of America branch here at Galveston.
Now, Bob, the records are here. The records are in. The state introduced records that you had used or that you had cashed several checks for $9,500 each in the week or so before Morris Black died. The other records that we use show there's a pattern that goes way back of cashing checks for $9,500. Why were you cashing checks for $9,500?
If you cash a check for more than for $10,000, there's a big form that gets filled in, and it takes a long time, and it goes to some agency, some place or other. And I always paid a lot of bills with cash and stuff, restaurants, things like that. But when this first happened in November of 2000, when I first ever went bananas and came down here, I knew that I knew if I ever had to go into hiding, I would need cash. And so I started withdrawing money from my banks, and I just sort of kept doing it like on remote control or something like that.
How much money had you accumulated by the third week in September of 2001 when you started cashing checks in Galveston also. Roughly how much cash money had you accumulated?
550, 600,000.
All your money?
All my money.
Money from your bank account?
Yes, sir.
Had you spent that money, or were you just accumulating it?
I'm not exactly sure how much I had. I had spent some of it.
Okay, let's get to the weekend of your sister's son's wedding. You get to Houston a couple of days before the wedding. What are the events that you go to?
Well, the swinging door on Friday night, and then the wedding Saturday night.
Now, the swinging door, you'd bought a suit at Brooks Brothers and you had running clothes. The swinging door is kind of a country and western place.
Yeah. I bought a western shirt at a place that's known for selling hats and boots on the north side of 45, between here and Houston.
So you went to that party. You came back to Galveston Saturday and met the maid.
Yes, sir. And I went to the eye doctor.
Now, why did you go to the eye doctor?
Something was going on with my eyes. My prescription had changed dramatically. And I'm guessing like a week or 2 weeks before that, I could not read the green signs on 45 going to Houston on the 19th. And I was sort of hoping it was a temporary thing or I had gotten something or other in my eyes. But when it hadn't gone away by Saturday, I knew I was going to have to go to an eye doctor to get a new prescription, get a complete checkup thing, type of thing.
So then on Saturday, where was the wedding?
The wedding was at the St. Regis in Houston.
That's a different hotel and a different location in Houston than the Four Seasons?
Yes.
Did you see people that you knew?
Yes.
Did you see your family?
Well, let me see. My sister and her children were there. My brother and Douglas and one of his children. His wife wasn't there. My little brother from California, Tom, he was not there. I guess that's who I saw, yes.
You said Debbie wasn't there. Debbie was your wife?
Debbie and my sister get along very, very badly. I had never told my sister, Debbie, that I had gotten married also. Yeah, like that.
Okay. After the wedding, did you return to Galveston?
Well, I didn't return until the next day, Sunday. I canceled the reservations to go to New York, and I came here Sunday evening, here in Galveston, and checked into the St. Louis.
So you didn't go to the apartment?
Not then, not Sunday. I didn't get back until 9 o'clock or so at night. I had dinner with my sister and her family and some of her son's friends.
Were you planning on living in the apartment anymore after that?
No.
So you checked into the San Luis?
Witness nods head up and down.
Is that a yes?
I'm sorry. That's a yes.
And those who might not be familiar with the San Luis, describe it for the jury.
It's two large buildings facing the seawall around 61st Street, I guess. A resort. It's the San Luis Resort, and they have a Landry's there and an IHOP, and now they have that big, whatever you call it, rainforest cafe thing, I'm told. I've never seen it. And a big pool out the front of the building.
A very nice hotel?
Very nice. A nice hotel.
And you checked in as Bob Durst?
Yes.
On the morning of September the 24th, did something else very disturbing happen, very unusual?
I got up and I drove my car to the temple.
Why did you drive to the temple?
Well, it's just about a mile from the apartment, and I was going to go to the apartment and get the bicycle, and I figured that would guarantee that I did some jogging or got some exercise rather than just driving a car around town. And I would remember where I had left it. So I left the car outside the temple.
You're talking about the Temple of Benai, Israel?
Right, on 30th Street and Avenue 0.
And that's Avenue O. And that's a mile or more from the apartment?
It's just about a mile, yes, sir, depending upon what route you take. So I left the car there, and I jogged to 2213 Avenue K. I walked up the steps to the front of the building and opened the door, and I heard the television on.
You heard the television?
Yes, sir.
Well, now, Morris Black didn't have a television in his apartment, did he?
No, it was the television in my apartment.
So what did you think when you heard that the television in your apartment was on that morning?
I thought I had left it on when I went away. It just seems so unlikely because it's so little, but I unlocked the door and went in, and the television...
What did you see as soon as you walked in?
Morris Black was sitting at that table in the apartment. He had a big smirk on his face because he must have heard me before I opened the door.
Again, using the model, where was he?
He was sitting in the office chair, the black chair, watching television.
All right.
And I opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, I saw him, and he saw me, although I'm sure he knew I was coming in before I came in because I put the key in the lock.
So what did you do? What did you see when you saw Morris? You knew you had taken the key away from him.
I wasn't immediately angry. I was immediately annoyed. Morris, you're not supposed to have another key. The whole idea of me taking the key away and saying you couldn't come in here when I wasn't here is that I don't want you in here. It was difficult to try to explain the obvious.
What was his reaction?
Well, he was apologetic and he was sorry, but he really wanted to stay and watch television. He right away gave me the key back. He won't do it anymore. I asked if he had any other keys, and he said he did not.
So apparently he had had at least one other key made.
Yes.
So did you kick him out or not?
I did not.
What happened, though, even after that?
He stayed there 2 or 3 hours or so.
What did you do?
Well, I was watching television, and I don't know what I was doing, but we stayed there for a while. And at some point, I went into the bathroom, and I was urinating.
The same thing? You went into the bathroom and closed the door?
I was standing at the urinal, standing at the toilet, and I was urinating, and I heard a gunshot.
Another gunshot?
I heard a gunshot just like before, right out to the right of me.
What did you do?
I stopped urinating, I opened the door, and proceeded to walk. I did not see Morris right away. I proceeded to walk toward the living room.
Out this way?
Yes.
And then what happened?
Well, I didn't get all the way there. Out of the corner of my right eye, I saw Morris standing in front of the pantry.
Is this the pantry?
That's the pantry.
And was the door open or shut?
The door was always open. It was left open. I don't know that it was shut.
All right.
I don't know that that door was shut. He was standing facing the pantry, and he was just putting the gun down. I said, "Give me the gun. Give me the gun." And I took the gun, and he gave me the gun. I mean, now I was angry. I said, "This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this." And he was a little apologetic, but not like he should have been. And I said, "Give me the key and get out of here."
Compare the time before, the week before, when you chewed him out and taking the key away with the way you treated him this time?
Completely different. The first time, I mean, he had a big smirk on his face. And the first time, he didn't know it was a bad thing to do. It was a prank. This time, he knew it was a bad thing to do. And he was clearly doing it to show me something or other.
What did you have in the pantry?
A bunch of boxes or box that the microwave came in, and that green table, that camping table. We had several of those. And they would fold up, and you put them in these heavy cardboard boxes, which had a handle which came out of the top that you could carry them with. I had something or other for the bicycle, the box the bicycle came in, or the 2 boxes that the bicycle came in. And he picked up a political campaign, what do you call them? Things you hold up on a stick?
Big signs?
What do you call that?
Big signs?
Yeah.
Campaign signs?
Heavy duty.
Placards?
Yeah, placards, something like that. He had several of those in there. Nothing useful, really.
Did you see when he shot in the pantry in all that I would call it trash, but did you see where the bullet went?
No, but he was facing the pantry.
Did you make it clear to him that he wasn't ever to come back in there?
Oh, I made it very clear to him. And I think he was aware that I was going to be moving out of there pretty soon.
What did you do with the gun?
Oh, I intended to take the gun with me, but since I had left the car at the temple and jogged over, we never used the stove. It was an old stove. I never used the stove. It was an old stove with a gas pilot light and like that, and so it was turned off at the valve at the very bottom on the floor. So I took the gun, I took the magazines out of it, and I took the gun, and I put it in the bottom of the stove, the back of the broiler.
You mean not the oven, but the broiler?
Yeah, at the very bottom.
To hide it?
Yes.
The court. We're going to stop now for lunch and come back at 1:30. A recess was taken. The court. Yes.
This is records from DFW Gun Range and Training Center, 1607 West Mockingbird, Dallas, Texas, 75235, with a business records affidavit. It shows a receipt to Robert Durst dated 27 March 01, 38 Fed rounds, Smith & Wesson 337. The serial number CDD 9764, which I believe matches the gun that's in evidence. And then a date of March 11/01 for a concealed handgun license training, $120, and with some charge for some rounds for that training session, total of $142.73. Does that comport with your recollection?
Yes, sir.
Another thing I've overlooked asking you about, you have told us after 9/11, Morris asked you to make a call to Klaus Dillman. You told us that you were on the way to the Cadillac bar. You stopped at the back of the Galvez and made the call. Did you go to the Cadillac bar?
Yes, sir.
And was Morris Black with you?
Yes.
Now I want to get back to the 2 times that Morris Black shot the gun in the apartment, on the 17th and the 24th. After the 17th, I want you to compare, if you will, for the jury, the way you treated Morris on the 24th with the way you treated the incident on the 17th.
At least part the way Morris treated me. On the 17th, I honestly do believe he thought it was a prank. A little thing, surprise, or something like that. I told him that it's totally wrong. Dangerous. Wrong.
And his reaction to that, the way you treated him in that time?
He seemed to accept what I was saying. He could understand. Yes, he accepted it. There wasn't any argument. It wasn't like I was accusing him of knowingly doing something wrong. I don't think he appreciated that it was just something you don't do. When I took the key away from him, it was me saying, you know it's wrong. It's wrong. You can't do that.
What was his response to that?
Totally accepting. He got his stuff together, and he took the Klaus Dillman letter down off the archway. He said he would fix whatever the damage was. I didn't even know where the damage was, really. And he did eventually say that he would fix the bullet hole in one of those next couple of days.
Compare that to what you said to him and the way you said it and his reaction to the second shooting incident.
The second time, he had started off in the wrong, so to speak, because I hadn't given him the key back to the apartment. A couple of times before I went to the Four Seasons in Houston, I invited him to come in, but I had never given him the key back. So I'm sure that when he was there in the morning of the 24th, he thought that I'd left town and was totally not expecting me to come back. I mean, looking back on it, he was probably in the apartment those days between when I left and when I got back. I don't know that I thought of that then. This time, I had already taken the key away from him. He knew that I wasn't going to give the key back, and he was sort of showing me. He knew that I was shooting the gun in the apartment, in this case, in the pantry, was something that I was going to get angry about. That was something that he should not do. And he was doing it to show me, I feel.
As far as the relationship, the friendship that had been between you and Morris at that point, what did you say to him to indicate whether that you were still going to be friends or not going to be friends?
I didn't say anything as specific or as ballsy like that. From the time that he was in the apartment and shouldn't have been there, he knew that he had gone beyond the bounds of friendship or something like that. And shooting the gun was just, I don't know, showing me that he didn't care or something like that.
Then during the next week, the 24th, 25th, 26th, and the 27th, did you have any contact with Morris Black?
No.
Where were you during that time? Where were you living during that time?
The San Luis Hotel.
Where did you eat?
I don't remember, but the records show I got room service every night.
Is room service that you do on a regular basis something you enjoy?
When I'm in a hotel, sure.
Well, for instance, at the Four Seasons, did you use room service at the Four Seasons when you were staying there the week earlier?
I'm sure it was more or less the same.
Now let's go to September the 28th.
Yes, sir.
What time did you get up that morning?
I woke up real early, 3 o'clock. I don't think I slept that much the night of the 27th. I don't know why. And I just felt that I couldn't go back to sleep, so I went out and went for a walk on the seawall.
Did you have any prescription medications then?
In my possession?
Yeah.
Yes. I've been taking sleeping pills for a long time.
What kind of sleeping pills?
Halcyon.
Halcyon?
Witness nods head up and down.
Did you have marijuana?
Sure, yes.
Were you using marijuana on a daily basis?
Yes, sir.
Had you and Morris Black ever used marijuana before?
I smoked frequently, either that and periodically he would take a little, very infrequently, but periodically.
At any rate, on the morning of the 28th, when you got up at 3 and couldn't go back to sleep, what did you do?
I went for a walk on the seawall.
When you got back to the San Luis, was it still dark?
Yes, sir.
What did you do from there?
I started figuring out what was going to do during the day. On the 26th, I had been to the eye doctor, Dr. Matocha's office, and had ordered glasses. Wait a minute, let me get this right. The 26th was a Wednesday. I picked up glasses for the prescription that he had done for me on Monday the 24th. And as soon as I got out of his office, within that afternoon, I knew that the eye exam that the doctor on the seawall had done was no good. That the new prescription was as bad or worse than the old prescription. So I had intended to go back to Dr. Matocha's office and have him give me an eye exam and start fresh with a new eye exam. And I intended to go to the Bank of America and cash one of my checks. I prepared the check before I left the hotel.
And how much was the check for?
$9,500.
Okay, what else did you plan to do that morning?
I don't know what else I planned to do that morning, but those were pretty much my two errands that I planned. I thought about going to, I was planning on going to 2213 to get the bicycle and ride the bicycle for a while, which I hadn't done for a couple of days.
So when you leave the San Luis, is it early morning?
It's dark, yes sir.
And how do you leave? Do you walk? Do you ride? Do you drive? What?
I drove.
Drove what car?
My Honda.
And where did you drive to?
The same place I've been going to all week long, to 30th Street and Avenue O. And I would park in front of the temple.
And what did you do from there?
Well, I was sitting in the car listening on KUHF. They have a morning business market report, if you will. It's on from about 5:45 to 6. And I sat in the car when I got there, and I just listened to it for a while.
Is that how you knew what time it was?
Yes, it wasn't over when I left the car.
So when you left the car, what did you have with you?
Well, the keys to the apartment. I was going to get the bicycle, the check for $9,500, and the Bank of America check cashing card, which you need. I guess I had some, singles, some cash, and the keys to the car.
Did you have your cell phone with you in Galveston then?
Well, I was keeping the cell phone plugged into the hole through the lighter, but they don't call it that anymore. But yes, the cell phone was in the car.
Did you take the cell phone with you, or did you leave it in the car?
I left it in the car.
All right, so as you left the car then, what did you do? Where did you go?
I was thinking, in those days, my cell phone was a big clunky one. I got out of the car, the businessy type report was still on, and I did sort of a slow jog to 2213.
And what happened when you got to 2213 Avenue K?
I opened the front door of the building.
When you did, what did you notice?
My TV was on.
Earlier in the week on Monday, you had gotten there early in the morning. The TV was on. You knew you didn't leave it on. What did you think then? I'm sorry, I didn't make my question clear. Given what had happened on the 24th, on the 28th when you got there early in the morning, and you hear the TV going, what did you think?
It wasn't so much what I thought. I knew Morris had to have gotten back into the apartment. He must have had another key, probably a whole slew of keys.
So how did you feel?
A little taken advantage of, annoyed.
Were you angry?
I don't think I was angry, just standing there. I was tired. I just didn't want to do this.
So what happened next? What did you do?
I unlocked the door with the 2 keys, and I opened the door.
When you opened the door, what did you see?
Morris was sitting at the table, and he surely could hear me outside the door. And I'm sure he could hear me opening the lock. And he had the kind of look on his face that he had when he took the Frisbee away from those guys and threw it in the water.
What do you mean? What kind of look on his face?
He was angry at me.
I'm going to take our morning recess now. Ladies and gentlemen, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with the case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll return at 10:30. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our jurors and alternates all are present. In People versus Robert Durst, Mr. Durst is present with Mr. DeGuerin and Mr. Chesnoff. Mr. Bailey is at council table and assisted by Mr. Milius, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata. Our reader has resumed the witness stand and also at the bar. At this point, it is I believe the court has the next word, so you may proceed.
Mr. Durst, I need you to keep your voice up.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
What did you think when you saw that look on his face?
I thought Morris was angry, and what I immediately thought about was the fact that I had never gone back to get the gun that was still in the broiler compartment of the stove.
Had Morris ever turned the look that you saw that day on you?
I had only seen him really angry at people 2 or 3 times that summer, and certainly never at me.
So what did you do? You're at the door. What did you do?
I went directly to the oven,
And that's where you left the gun?
down in the broiler compartment, in the back of the broiler compartment.
Bob, I want to ask you to step down and demonstrate what happened from that point. If you can consider over here where the captain is, I think that's the wrong word, captain, is as the door.
Cabinet?
What line are you on? 89?
Yeah, right here. See the word captain? I think that's a,
Cabinet, man. You can say cabinet.
Could turn the whole case, you know.
Cap stand?
It appears to be a typo, it says cabinet. It may mean cabinet.
or it could be lieutenant or general, or who knows? Bob, I want to ask you to step down and demonstrate what happened from that point. If you can consider over here where the cabinet is as the doorway to the apartment. You're at the doorway of the apartment. And Morris is sitting at the chair. By the way, this chair that we have as a model is a chair with 5 legs. How do you remember the chair that was in the apartment?
The chair was here, and one of the legs was sort of poking out to the side like that.
Now, the chair we have here in the courtroom also has 5 legs. Was it similar to this chair? I know it's not the same.
Similar, but the legs spread out farther.
If I sat at this table and there was a television set in this wall, would you show the jury what you did?
This is a little tight this way. Morris would have been farther over there, but more quickly than that. This is the oven. The broiler compartment is down there. And I got down there to reach for the gun.
Was the gun there?
It was not there. And I looked down to look in the back so I could see my hand to make sure it was not there.
And then what did you do?
Then I said, Morris, where's the gun? Morris, where's the gun? Morris, give me the gun. And I got up, and Morris had already turned around, facing me like that.
Now, I know, or you tell us, did this happen quickly or did it happen as slowly as we're doing it now?
It was all over before I thought about it, like I'm thinking about it now.
As you got up, seeing that the gun was not in the broiler, as you got up and looked toward Morris, what did you see?
Morris had swiveled in the chair halfway toward me and was looking at me.
Did you see what Morris did with his hand?
Yes. As soon as my head got up to about here, he reached forward onto the table, and he reached underneath this yellow jacket that had been sitting on the table.
And what did he do?
As he started turning toward me, I kept saying, Morris, where's the gun? Give me the gun. Give me the gun. and I got up and
What did Morris do as you got up?
turned more toward me with the gun.
Where was he pointing the gun?
Before he could point the gun at me, I grabbed the barrel of the gun over his hand like that.
And what did he do?
Well, he didn't let go of the gun.
And then what happened?
I pulled the gun.
Did Morris stand up?
He was standing up. He was up by the time I got to touch him like this.
And then what happened?
We fell back like that onto the floor. Morris's foot caught on the chair leg, which had happened to me numerous times when I was sitting at that table and would turn around to go to the kitchen.
May I confer with counsel? Read doesn't describe what actually the way it was read or the way it happened in the courtroom, and I'd like to go over that again.
Yes.
Starting at line 17
Okay, page, it's just
on
92.
92.
9217, okay.
So it's just a short amount of repetition. And then what happened?
I pulled the gun.
Did Morris stand up?
He was standing up. He was up by the time I got to touch him like this.
And then what happened?
We fell back like that onto the floor. Morris's foot caught on the chair leg, which had happened to me numerous times when I was sitting at the table and would turn around to go to the kitchen.
As you fell, did you fall all the way?
Oh, we fell all the way. Yes, sir.
Did you fall hard?
Yes, sir.
And what part of your body hit first?
My left elbow.
Your left elbow?
Yeah, right here.
And where was your right hand as you fell?
My right hand was in the same place it had been from the beginning, on the barrel of the gun, or, on the barrel of the gun on top of his hand.
As this was going on, Bob, what did you think Morris was about to do? What were you concerned about?
I was concerned that Morris was going to shoot the gun, most likely at my face.
Were you in fear of that?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know that I thought all these things, but I do know that the gun was aiming at me. He was pushing the gun toward me, and I was trying to pull the gun away.
So as you held your hand, on the front part of the gun, and you wrestled with him over the gun.
We never really wrestled. I went to pull the gun, and the gun didn't move. He moved, and the two of them.
Asked that there not be a demonstration at this point. Looks like both counsel are trying to recreate a demonstration, which we discussed at the sidebar.
Right, well, I'm not going to let the reader, so. The questions of counsel are not evidence. Obviously, a question of counsel that involves some using of hands to illustrate the question, that's a form of communication also, but it's not evidence. It's useful only to the jurors if it helps them understand the answers that are given by the witness. So I will overrule the objection to Mr. DeGuerin using his hands to illustrate the question.
Right, I just want to make clear that by him using his hands, there's no agreement that that's the demonstration that was done in court that particular day.
Yeah, if that were the case, we'd have to stand up and go through the whole thing.
The witness will not be getting out of the witness. The reader is not a witness. The witness testified here, and the testimony is evident from the transcript. It's so.
Can we go sidebar real quick?
Pardon?
Could we go sidebar real quick?
Yeah, okay, let's go sidebar. Let's be off the record, we'll put on the record. let's proceed.
I think we were at page 94, about line 7. Well, starting at line 4. So as you held your hand on the front part of the gun and wrestled with him over the gun.
We never really wrestled. I went to pull the gun and the gun didn't move. He moved and the two of us fell back like that.
As you hit the ground or the floor, and as your elbow hit, what happened?
The gun went off.
Bam, like that?
Like that.
And then what did you see?
I pushed myself up on my left hand and I saw blood on the side of Morris's nose like that.
Now you and I could sit here and try to duplicate what happened all day long. You're 60 years old, I'm 62 years old. You know, I remember those days.
Okay.
We can't fall down without hurting ourselves, can we? We especially couldn't now.
I doubt it.
Did you hurt your elbow?
Yes, sir.
Was it sore?
Yes, sir.
Bob, you've seen a computerized animation of what you just described, what you saw happen, what you participated in. Have you seen a video animation of those events that you've tried to describe in words?
Yes, sir.
And does a video animation that you have seen duplicate exactly what happened as you recall it and as you experienced it?
Yes, sir.
Is it or not inadequate to try to describe in words what happened?
Yes, sir.
And by this computer animation, does it duplicate as nearly as is possible with technology as we have it today, exactly what happened?
Yes, sir.
The apartment is, as is shown in the video animation, is it accurate? Is it an accurate depiction of the apartment?
Yes, sir.
Is the struggle that you and Morris Black had over the gun an accurate depiction of in the video animation?
Yes, sir.
This, of course, is going to have to be terribly leading, but would it aid the jury in understanding exactly how this happened, and more so than just being able to describe it in words?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we have previously supplied to the prosecution and to the court the computerized video animation. We would like to play it for the court so this court can see it on the record, and we offer the video animation.
The court. All right, you can go ahead and play it then. That's what you're asking me to do, play it?
Yes, ma'am.
And for the following section, I'll be Mr. Bennett, District Attorney.
All right, so this, let me just inquire, counsel, is this,
Well, there's a voir dire on the issue coming up by the prosecutor on this.
all right, is this animation an exhibit that the jury will see?
Not at this juncture.
Not at this juncture. Okay, you may proceed with reading.
Mr. Durst, you said that it would aid the jury in understanding exactly how this happened, more so than just being able to describe it in words, correct?
Yes.
How?
Your question is how?
Yes, sir.
How the jury would be able to see what happened?
The question was, would it aid the jury in understanding more factually how this happened, more so than being able to describe it in words? How is it more accurate than you are able to describe it in words?
It's more accurate because it's the scale. It's more accurate because there's no way that I, Mr. DeGuerin, or somebody else could duplicate what happened here.
How do you know it's to scale?
I was told it was to scale.
Did you participate in creating this?
It was shown to me a number of times and I made corrections.
So this is all based upon your words, correct?
It's my descriptions.
So it's basically showing the exact same thing as your description.
Yes.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
And how much do you weigh?
When I was arrested, I weighed about 140.
Your booking at GPD shows 150. Would you dispute that?
No.
Morris was also 5'7", correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was also 150?
I don't know that.
How long were his legs?
How long were his legs?
Yes, sir.
I have no idea.
And how long was his torso?
I have no idea.
And how big around were his arms?
I have no idea.
And how long was it from his shoulder to his elbow?
I have no idea.
And how long was it from his elbow to his wrist?
I have no idea.
And his hands, how big were they?
I have no idea.
When you walked over and approached Morris and he was standing up, what were you looking at?
What Mr. DeGuerin and I just did now was not very accurate. The layout here is too long and too skinny.
That wasn't my question.
Okay.
My question to you was, when you walked over to Morris, what were you looking at?
I was looking at Morris and the gun.
And your focus was on the gun, was it not?
Probably.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure what you were looking at?
I was looking at Morris and the gun.
But exactly what you were looking at, you're not sure? So, you're not sure what you were looking at?
I was looking at Morris and the gun.
Were you looking at his feet?
No.
And how far was it from you to Morris when he started standing up?
I would have to show you the model. If you want me to guess, 5, 6, 7 feet, like that.
And how many steps did it take to get over there?
I have no idea.
And when you got over to Morris, I believe you demonstrated with Mr. DeGuerin, one hand you grabbed the gun. What did you do with the other hand?
I put it on his shoulder.
When you were acting it out with Mr. DeGuerin, you had your hand on his bicep. Did you not?
I was what?
His bicep, not his shoulder.
Then I put my hand on the wrong place. It should have been on his shoulder.
And the location of the chair, how far was it from the outside wall of his apartment?
How far was it?
Yes, sir.
In feet?
Yes, sir.
A couple.
Do you have an exact measurement of how far the chair was?
No, sir.
And how far was it from the closet wall?
The back of the chair?
Yes, sir.
Probably less than a foot.
Do you have an exact measurement?
No, sir.
How far was the chair from the edge of the carpet going into the living room?
The back of the chair?
Yes, sir.
Whatever the depth of the closet is, probably 30, 36 inches plus another foot.
But again, you don't have an exact measurement, do you?
No, sir.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand your testimony, Morris was sitting in the chair and he reached under the table and he stood up with the gun, correct?
He reached under the jacket on top of the table.
Right under the jacket?
Yes, sir.
On top of the table?
Yes, sir.
Pulled out a gun?
But not like that. But yes, he took the gun out from under the jacket.
Show me how he pulled it out. Tell me to do with my hand. It with my hand.
Just move it parallel to the floor the way you're doing it like that.
That's when you saw the gun?
And his elbow was far more straightened out.
Straightened out down?
No. Yes. Not all the way straightened out, but most of the way straightened out.
Just sort of whip it around towards you?
I didn't say whip it around, but yes.
And then he went to stand up?
By the time he was in a standing position, I had my hand on the gun.
And where was his left arm?
His left arm was either at his side or up there like that. He had picked up his left arm.
So you don't know where his left arm was?
No, sir.
And this is where y'all started to fall, is that correct?
About. I don't think he ever got to a complete standing position.
And you're here, and one hand was on the gun, and one hand was on the shoulder. You were looking at the gun, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
So you have no idea where his feet were, do you?
I have no idea where his feet were.
So when you testified earlier that he tripped over the chair, that was just speculation.
No. I felt him trip over the chair leg because I'd done it myself 1,000 times.
You're assuming that he did because you had done it before?
Yes, sir.
So that was an assumption on your part.
Yes, sir.
We don't know that for a fact.
No, sir.
And exactly what angle was Morris to the kitchen?
When I put my hand on his hand,
Yes, sir.
pretty much the way you are now.
Could it have been a few degrees this way or a few degrees this way?
Certainly a few degrees.
So the reconstruction can't tell you exactly where, how Morris was facing, one way or the other, can it?
No, sir.
And then you fell down. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you landed on your left elbow?
Yes, sir.
And where was your right elbow?
My right hand was on the gun, and my right elbow was where it would be, sort of.
Did your hand stay on the gun?
The whole time, yes, sir.
And when it went off, your hand was still on the gun?
Yes, sir.
And how did Morris Black land?
Pretty much on his back. A little bit on the right shoulder, but mostly on his back.
And how do you know that for sure?
I don't know that for sure.
And when y'all fell down, where was his right elbow?
On top of his body.
And his left elbow?
I don't know.
What was Morris Black wearing?
Long sleeve shirt and long sleeve pants.
What color?
I don't remember.
When you were falling down, did your left hand, stay on his shoulder all the way to the ground?
I don't know.
Which direction was the gun pointing when you started to fall?
When we started to fall, the gun was pretty much between us.
Which way was it pointing, though?
When we started to fall, the gun was pointed mostly up around my chest.
I'm sorry, mostly up?
Mostly up, it was around my chest.
You're unsure exactly which direction the gun was pointed, but it was generally in an up direction?
Yes.
And as you fell, how did the gun turn?
It must have turned toward his face.
Do you know? Do you know how the gun got pointed up to Morris's face?
I don't know the answer to that.
Where was Morris's finger when he pulled his hand out from underneath the gun? I mean, pulled the gun out from underneath the jacket.
He was holding the gun the way you would hold a gun to shoot it.
When Morris fell, or when you and Morris fell, where exactly was the break between the carpet and the linoleum on his back?
Sort of around his, I think it was above his waist. I think that the linoleum went to not get as far as his waist. The carpet was above his waist a little bit. My waist too, I think.
You don't know exactly, but in this general area?
Yes, sir.
It is your testimony you never had your finger on the trigger at any time?
That's correct.
And when you fell, exactly how far away were you from the wall?
I fell with my back against the archway that goes into the kitchen.
So your back hit the archway?
I think so. It was right next to it.
You're unsure?
Well, the archway was right there. It was an inch or half an inch, like that, but the archway was in back of my back.
Did your back hit the archway when you fell?
No, I don't think so.
So you're unsure whether your back hit the archway or not?
Correct.
And exactly how far was Morris away from the archway?
Well, the length of my body.
In inches or feet, how far?
Less than a foot.
You don't know for sure?
Correct.
The court. All right. Do you want to play it now?
Sure, Judge. Yes, Your Honor. At this point, I guess we need to confer about how to do this.
We could have it ready and played like after the next break, if that's okay.
If we could take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, we could.
Might make more sense if you're gonna show it at all, show it now.
Yeah. It's very short.
It's not queued up.
No, because it wasn't marked as an exhibit, so we don't have it here as an exhibit. So we just need few moments.
All right. Enough time where I should excuse the jury?
I think 5 minutes would be.
5 minutes? All right, I think you'd probably enjoy being out of your seats, walking around for 5 minutes, so I will excuse you for 5 minutes until 11:11. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. All right, we're back in session. Our jurors and alternates have returned from the break. The animation from the Galveston trial is queued up. Mr. Durst is here with Mr. Chestnut and Mr. DeGuerin, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata, Mr. Milius are here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You may play. Okay, the video's been played. And that's, what is that exhibit? Will it mark it at the end?
It will mark it at the end because it wasn't marked during the trial, so we'll mark it at the end.
Okay.
Bob, at the point you and Morris had struggled and had fallen to the floor, your elbow hit. The gun went off. What did you do? What did you next do?
I pushed myself up with my left hand, and Morris was just lying essentially on his back. There was blood over here.
Let me stop you there for a second. When you grabbed for the gun and grabbed his hand, did your finger ever go on the trigger?
No. And I really grabbed the gun a whole lot more than his hand. I was on the barrel in front of his hand mostly.
And when you grabbed with your left hand, where was your left hand?
On his shoulder.
Was Morris strong?
Stronger than me.
Did you intend to shoot Morris?
I did not. And I don't think I did shoot Morris.
Did you cause the gun to go off?
I did not cause the gun to go off. No, sir.
I have to ask this in a kind of a formal way because of the way the law is written. But did you voluntarily cause the gun to discharge?
No, sir.
Do you know whether Morris's finger was on the trigger?
Morris's finger was between the trigger guard and the trigger.
Now, the trigger guard in that pistol is like a standard trigger guard, a round thing around the pistol, and then the trigger within that trigger guard.
Yes, sir.
And your finger was not on the trigger or in the trigger guard?
No, my hand was essentially in front of the trigger guard. The heel of my hand was on the front of his hand.
As Morris lay there on the floor and you saw the blood on his face, what did you think?
I don't know what I thought, but I grabbed him by the upper arms, and I shook him, and I said, "Morris," several times.
Did you say it in the way you've just said it here on the witness stand?
I would think I said it louder.
What did you do next?
Well, Morris did not respond to that anyway. I ran to the front of the apartment. I opened the door, and I turned right. When I got out of the apartment, I ran up the stairs to there's one apartment upstairs, and the Enriquez apartment, I know now. And I ran upstairs to the apartment door.
Why did you go up there?
Well, I assumed, even though looking back on it, I don't know why I did that. They had a telephone, and I wanted to get a doctor. All I could think of was getting a doctor.
So as you ran up the stairs, had you been up the stairs before? Had you been up in the second floor of that apartment building?
No, there's nothing up there but that one apartment and a small landing. I'd never walked up the stairs at all.
Was there a light, and was the light on?
Well, there is a light, and the light was off.
There's a photograph that the state has introduced into evidence, State's Exhibit 505. It's taken from, this is a copy of it, of State's 505. If I might hold it for the jury. I don't think they had these invented back then. This photograph, this is a copy of it, States 505, if I might hold it for the jury. This photograph is obviously taken when the light is on and is taken upstairs from the advantage point of being inside the door to apartment number 1. Can you see? Should be apartment 3. Yeah. Can you see the number on the apartment? On the door, apartment 1?
Mr. Bennett says, is upstairs in apartment 1.
Excuse me, I'm saying 1, and you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Number 3. It says number 3, and obviously taken from with that door open. And it shows the upper part of the stairs, and it also shows a light that's obviously on, and it shows another door. What happened when you got up to the top of the stairs?
Right away, I saw the door that's in that picture, catty corner to the right of the stairs.
And what did you do?
I ran over to that door and I knocked on it.
The court. Mr. Durst, you need to speak up.
I ran over to that door and I knocked on the door and I said, I have to call 911. I have to call 911. I have to call 911.
Did anybody respond?
No.
What did you do?
I ran back down the stairs, and when I was 3 or 4 steps from the bottom, I thought I heard some noise upstairs. Not a voice, but like noise. So I stopped and I turned around, and I believe I said, hello, hello, is there somebody there? And then I didn't hear any further noise.
Well, let me stop you for just a second. I thought I'd ask you this, but I'm being told I didn't. Was the light on upstairs or not?
There were no lights on. There was a light downstairs, and I now know there is a light upstairs. There were no lights on in that building, in the building.
Was it still dark outside?
Yes, sir.
When you got no response, and when you got back downstairs and you thought you heard something and again got no response, what did you do then?
I opened the front door to the building, and I went down the stairs and out the sidewalk. And I took a left outside onto the sidewalk, and I ran down to the payphone that I'd used repeatedly while I lived there. The nearest payphone is on the corner of Avenue K and 23rd Street.
What's the business there at K and 23rd?
It's Charlie's Burgers.
What happened when you got there?
Well, when I got about 10 or 15 feet from the payphone, which is really underneath the... They have an outdoor area there where people sit. Maybe they have an indoor area too. I don't know. But right on the corner over there, their property meets the sidewalk is where this payphone is. And I saw a lady standing there with the phone on her left ear, and I don't think she was talking. And she had her right hand, she had her right hand on a child, presumably her son's shoulder. And I said, I have to call 911. I have to call 911. And I slowed down, and I kept walking toward her quickly. And she did not respond at all. She acted like she did not understand me. So I said, I have to call 911 more loudly. And then I saw a car parked basically just by the sidewalk on 23rd Street. And the front passenger door was open, and there was a man who had been leaning against the back of the car. And he started walking quickly toward me, so I turned to him, turned in his direction a little bit, and I said, I have to call 911. I have to call 911. And he did not say anything either.
Let me stop you right there. The woman, describe her as best you can for the jury.
She was black, African American, I don't know, 40, but I could be off by many, many years.
And describe, if you can, the look on her face when you approached her and said you had to call 911.
She was almost like she was listening to somebody and not to me. It's almost as if she did not understand what 911 is.
Did you see any recognition of you or any fright or anything on this lady's face?
I didn't see fright on her face, but she sort of pulled the child a little bit closer to her with her right hand.
What about the man? What sort of reaction did you get from the man that came from the car?
I think he was walking over to protect her.
Protect her from what?
I guess from me.
And describe the man.
Also black, more or less the same age.
Bigger than you?
Yes.
And so what did you do?
I turned around and I ran to one of the houses between Charlie's Burgers and 2213. And I ran up the front steps. And it was one of the... They had screen doors in the front. I opened the screen doors and I knocked on the door.
Did you get any response?
No, I did not see a doorbell.
Now, there were two houses between Charlie's and 2213. Was it the first house or the second house?
I didn't know that there were two houses until I got into this, but I didn't know which house it was.
And did you get any response from your knock?
Well, I knocked pretty loudly, I thought, and then I ran down the steps, and I looked up and I didn't see any lights off. I didn't see any lights or any lights go on or anything like that.
So what did you do then?
Well, then I went back out onto the sidewalk and thought I would go back to 2213 and see if I could help Morris.
Did you do that?
Yes, sir.
When you went back, did you go inside?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do?
I went over to Morris and he was just lying there. And I put my hand over his nose and held it there for a little while. And, I mean, for seconds, I'm sure, but it seemed like a little while. And I did not feel any breathing or any movement or anything. I put my hand on his wrist, I grabbed it hard, and I did not feel any pulse.
And so what did
any
you
movement,
think?
Or any movement at
Oh,
all.
sorry. And so what did you think?
Morris was dead.
Now, Morris is dead. What was your reaction? What did you think, Bob?
I sat down on the bed and I just looked at Morris and I just put my head in my hands. And I was there for a long time. And I just kept thinking, I have to get my head up. Pick my head up.
Your Honor, at this point, we changed lawyers. Mr. Ramsey took over at this point.
You want to read it too, or you want to pass it off to Mr. Chestnut?
I'll go ahead and read it.
All right, Darren, you may read the questions by Mr. Ramsey.
Well, Mr. Chesnoff has a Las Vegas accent, and I think mine will more closely resemble Mr. Ramsey.
You didn't hear me do you the other day.
And then, Mr. Durst, after the passage of some amount of time, did you in fact get your head up?
Yes, sir.
Now I want to talk to you about things and decisions you made after you determined Morris was dead. Things you did after that event. Now, first of all, sir, when you took your head off your hands, got up, what did you focus on? What did you see? What did you think?
When I first lifted my head up, I saw that I had some blood on my fingers.
Can you give me any kind of description of, or share with the jury any kind of description of how you felt, the emotional state you were in at that point, sir?
I felt numb.
The court, you have got to speak up.
I felt numb.
You said you had some blood on your hands. Do you know how it got there?
I could only guess.
Well, don't guess. What did you do?
I walked around Morris's body. I saw how his head was in kind of a pool of blood right around his head. I walked around his body and I went to the bathroom to wash my hands.
Did you wash your hands?
I did. But when I got to the sink, I saw myself in the mirror and I had some blood here as well. So I washed my face and my hands for a while.
And what's the next thing you can recall doing, sir?
I started to walk out of the bathroom and I realized that the TV was on and the door was open.
Did you take any action about either one of those things?
I walked over to the TV and I turned it off and I went to shut the door, but it didn't shut all the way. The door, well, his door and my door on a humid day, or when they would use the washing machines a lot, the doors would stick. And you would have to shut them hard to get the doorknob or whatever it is to stay to close properly.
What happened from your point of view, sir?
I think I must have been slamming the door for a while, and then either Mrs. D. Enriquez say something, or I heard Mrs. D. Enriquez coming down the stairs, and I stepped outside. She speaks Spanish, and she was speaking to me in Spanish.
Do you speak Spanish, sir?
No,
Did you say anything to her?
I don't think so. I might have, I don't know. I waved what I had been doing all year long, appear as a sort of waving and saying hi, like that.
Well, did you go back into the apartment or did you stay outside? What did you do? What did you do?
I went back into the apartment and I shut the door.
Did you get it shut all the way?
Yes, sir.
How long did you stay in the apartment, Mr. Durst, before you did anything else, if you know?
I don't know.
The next thing you can recall about doing on that day, sir?
I remember I was on the seawall.
Which seawall? What part of the seawall?
I must have walked out Avenue K to the seawall. That's the best guess because I was on that part of the seawall.
What do you remember about the seawall, sir?
Well, I remember that I caught myself several times when people were looking at me. They had some stone benches on the seawall, and a couple of times, twice, I remember distinctly, as I was approaching one of those benches 15 or 20 feet away, the people turned and looked at me. And I realized I must have been talking loudly.
Do you recall what you were thinking about while you were walking up and down the seawall talking, sir?
I think I was thinking about what I might do.
Did you come to a conclusion about what to do, Mr. Durst?
Well, I stopped when the seawall sort of ended near Stewart Beach, and I went and walked down, and I sat down on the beach, and I told myself, you got to get yourself under control. You got to do something. Morris is dead in your apartment.
Well, did you make any decisions? Did you decide to do anything, sir?
Well, I kept thinking that what I should do is call the police.
Why didn't you call the police, Mr. Durst?
Well, I kept going over the situation in my mind that Morris was shot in the face with my gun in my apartment, and I'd rented this apartment disguised as a woman, and the police would, even before I got to the point where the police were immediately going to look into who I am, Robert Durst, who happened to rent this apartment as Dorothy Signer, and find out that I am this wealthy guy who rented the apartment well below his means, and there was all this media attention on him back in New York. I just didn't think I would be believed. I didn't think they would believe me.
So that's why you didn't call the police, because you didn't think they would believe you?
I guess so.
What did you decide to do, Mr. Durst?
I kept thinking of alternatives to calling the police.
What did you do next that you can recall, sir?
Well, the alternative I eventually came to was the one that got me here. That I would make it appear that Morris Black moved out of 2213 Avenue K.
There is in evidence, sir, a receipt from Chalmers Hardware at or near noon that day, I believe, as my recollection serves, 12/17 for a drop cloth and some trash bags. Do you have a specific recollection of going and making that purchase, sir?
No, sir.
What had you, on the other hand, do you recall what you had decided to do?
I decided to go back to 2213 and take Morris's clothes, belongings, and stuff, and discard them, take them out of the apartment.
What were you going to do about Morris?
I was going to roll Morris up in a drop cloth and carry Morris out of the apartment.
Well, if that receipt is correct, sir, and it was 12/17, can you recall the next thing that you did was? Can you remember going back to 2213K?
Yes, sir. I remember being in the apartment. Yes, sir.
What did you do when you got there, sir?
Well, I was getting ready to roll the drop cloth over Morris's body, and I saw that the key to his apartment on the string around his neck where he kept it.
What did that key lead to, if anything?
Well, I got the idea that I would call up Trudy Black, who I believe, or Gladys Black, who I believe Morris had told about his neighbor, who is his friend. And I was going to explain to her what had happened.
Does that make any sense, Mr. Durst?
Now?
Yes. Stop and think about it. What would happen if you called them?
Now it's clear to me that they would have called the police.
What steps did you do to accomplish that after seeing the key and anything to do with that?
Well, the key was in his blood around Morris's neck. And Morris had shown me, after I'd given him the key to my apartment, where he kept the spare key to his apartment in a baggie underneath the building. So I went down there and I got that key and I went into his apartment. And he had a big brown folder where he kept the checks and mail and documents and addresses and all this stuff that he had written and stuff like that. And I pretty much quickly saw it.
Were you familiar with that? Had you seen him with it before?
Sure.
What happened next? What did you do relative to the brown folder?
He had a notebook sort of like yours where he kept his addresses. I think he would write on every little piece of the notebook, and it wasn't like a real address book. It wasn't in alphabetical order. So I started going through it to find the address for Trudy or Gladys Black or Sassaw, whatever it was. And I came to a check for the month of October where he had put in the amount of his rent, which I think was $300 or $310 in the day, October 1st.
Do that lead you to any change of your state of mind or due to your thinking?
Well, then I thought that if the rent did not arrive on time, Monday was October the 1st. This is Friday. Then then Klaus Dillman would come over to the apartment and look for Morris to get the rent. And whenever he came over, he sort of checked out the other apartments, or at least checked out Dorothy Siner's apartment.
And Mr. Durst, we're talking about the 28th, are we not, a Friday?
Yes, sir.
That's still 4 days away before the check would be due, is it not? Here's that 1, 2, 3, 4 days would be October 1st, wouldn't it?
A Monday, yeah.
What were your intentions? What did you think? What was your emotional state?
I thought that if Klaus Dillman did not get the check on Monday, October the 1st, he would come over to the building.
And what was your plan?
At first I figured I would just fill in the check and mail it, but then I remembered the way Morris did his checks was certainly unique. He would write all over the checks with little notes and stuff. And his handwriting was unique too, like I saw it, but everybody's is. So I decided I would walk back to the car and get a money order and pay Morris Black's rent for October.
By that time, sir, had you already planned to run away?
I guess I should have said that before. When I decided not to go to the police, my decision, I have to go to the police or have to run away. So I decided to run away from the get-go, if you will.
All right, sir. You've seen records here in court and seen a video. I don't know whether you were in a position to see it, but there's a video been played in court of you purchasing a check. Did you recall purchasing a check to pay Morris's rent with?
No, sir.
Did you do it?
I'm sure I did it.
There are also records in court of your banking activity at Bank of America on that day, and you've told Mr. DeGuerin that you had a $9,500 check with you. Did you go to Bank of America that day?
I must have.
Mr. Durst, how much money in cash did you actually have in your possession or subject to your immediate control on that day?
I had at least $500,000 and probably as much as $600,000.
Now, do you have accounts at banks other than Bank of America, Mr. Durst?
Yes. Bank of America was not New York, so I used Bank of America when I was in Texas and in California.
Where was that money, sir? Where was that money?
Where was the money?
You said you had in cash $500,000 to $600,000.
I had bought a bowling bag, which is like a small duffel bag. And I had hidden in the floor joists underneath the Lutheran church on the corner of 22nd Street and Avenue K.
Do you have any explanation for why it was, if you had that much money available, sir, why did you need to go cash a $9,500 check that day? Do you have any recollection about that at all, or any explanation for it?
No.
Did you take any other action relative to Klaus Dillman yourself, your own rent, Morris's rent that day, that you can recall or not?
Well, I must have mailed it. I don't recall doing anything, but...
Now, you've seen in evidence here and heard testimony here in court relative to some charges at the San Luis Hotel, the haircut, for example.
Yeah, I remember I walked back into a room at the San Luis.
If I tell you it's around 5:20, would you dispute that, sir?
No.
When you walked into the San Luis, what did you do? What happened?
I believe the phone was ringing when I walked in, or it immediately started ringing. And someone was on the phone who identified himself as the manager of the spa and told me I'd made an appointment for a haircut earlier in the week and that I was late. I went downstairs and got a haircut.
You've also seen some records relative to room service on that day. And again, if I say to you they are around 8:46 p.m.,
I don't remember doing that, but I'm sure I did it.
well, where did you spend that night, sir? What happened with the room service? Anything you can tell me about the room service? Anything you can tell me about spending that night?
Well, assuming I did the same thing I did that night, I did the other night, I ordered all that food and threw up the whole mess.
Did you eventually sleep at the San Luis that night, to your recollection, sir?
I don't know if I slept. I stayed there.
Well, then, let's move to Saturday, the 29th. Do you recall, sir, getting up, getting out of the room at some point that day?
Yes, sir.
Keep your voice up, Mr. Durst.
Yes, sir.
What did you do that you can recall on that morning when you started to function that day? Tell me what thoughts went through your mind, what you did.
Well, I drove back to 2213 Avenue K in order to make it appear that Morris Black had moved out of the building.
Had you gotten your car back then in your possession? You said your car had been parked at the Temple the day before.
Well, I had driven the car from the Temple to the Walmart and then to the San Luis.
So on that day then, that morning, you drove back to 2213 K, and what were you going to do with Morris's belongings?
I was going to put Morris's belongings in those garbage bags and throw them out. Except for the brown folder, which I was going to keep and send to Gladys or Trudy Black.
And what did you intend to do with Morris himself?
I intended to roll Morris Black's body up in the drop cloth and carry it out of the building.
Well, what did you do after you got there?
Well, I started to roll the body up in the drop cloth, and I immediately became aware that there was no way I could lift it. It was hard enough to roll it. I couldn't lift it in the first place.
Well, did you move it at all?
I rolled it up. It ended up in the kitchen. Yes, I rolled it up into the drop cloth.
All right. Did you take any action relative to Morris's belongings at that time?
I don't think so.
What did you do next?
Then I realized there was no way I could carry Morris Black out of the apartment. I went out and I went to Economy Liquor Store. I've been going to on 23rd Street and Seawall. And I bought a fifth of Jack Daniels, and I went back to 2213 Avenue K, and I walked around for a while.
Did you drink the liquor?
I started to, yes.
Do you know how much of it you drank during the course of that day?
I just about finished it.
What did you do relative to Morris Black? What were you thinking about Morris Black at that point, Morris Black's body?
I had somehow got it into my mind that Morris Black there were a bunch of tools in his apartment. Several saws, an axe, and hammers, and other stuff like that. And I got this idea that the body rolled up in the drop cloth, that I was going to cut it in half.
Mr. Durst, did you, during the course of that day, dismember Mr. Morris Black's body?
Yes, sir.
What did you do with the parts of the body?
I put them in garbage bags.
You put the garbage bags in your car?
Yes, sir.
Ultimately later, skipping ahead, later that night, did you take those bags to the location on Channelview Drive you've described here?
Yes, sir.
Did you throw them all in the same place there?
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to then the apartment, sir. How many other efforts did you make to clean up or make Morris Black's, just take his things? What did you do that you can recall during the 29th, the Saturday?
Are we talking about during the day or at night?
During the day first.
Well, I cleaned up the kitchen apartment, most of the kitchen, and some of the bathroom because there was blood everywhere.
Did you take any of Morris's belongings and put them in the garbage bags?
Yes.
And where did you put all the stuff, sir? Did they go into your car?
Yes.
About what time did you drive down to Channelview Drive to put Morris's body in the bay?
Somewhat after midnight or several hours after midnight, something like that.
Did you throw all the bags off the same place into the same area?
Yes, sir.
And then what did you do, sir, as far as did you then, after that was done, go back to the hotel?
Yes, sir.
The San Luis Hotel?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do after you got there, sir?
I took some sleeping pills.
What kind?
The halcyons that I have.
Had you been smoking marijuana in addition to the liquor that day?
Yes, sir.
Did you go to bed?
I don't know what I did. I'm sure I went to bed, yeah. I'm sure I lied down.
Well, we're moving then, sir, towards Sunday, the 30th of September. Tell me what you did that had anything to do with Morris Black's body on the morning of September the 30th.
I was either dreaming or I would wake up thinking about the fact that I had left one of the garbage bags at the end of the pier.
Well, were you thinking that, dreaming that, seeing that? What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know which of those I was doing, but I kept picturing this garbage bag sitting at the end of the pier.
What did you do?
I drove down to Channelview, parked the car a little bit away, and walked down toward the pier. There were no garbage bag out at the end of Channelview, but out on the end of the pier, I right away could see that the garbage bags had not sunk as they appeared to do the night before, and some of them were floating there.
What did you do then, Mr. Durst?
I panicked. I ran back to the car.
And in the car, what did you do? Did you go anywhere in the car?
I drove back to 2213 Avenue K.
And when you got there, what did you do?
I might have gone into the apartment. I might have not. I just don't know. I walked around.
Do you know how long you walked around?
No.
Do you know what time of day it was about that time?
No.
Ultimately, what did you do next?
I drove back to the pier at 81st Street.
Why?
I don't know.
After you got there, when you got there, whatever time of day it was, what did you see after you went back to the pier there?
it seemed like there were more garbage bags coming in toward the land, and a suitcase that Morris Black's torso was in.
Wait a minute, I thought you said everything was in garbage bags. Is there a suitcase involved?
Yes, the torso was in a suitcase.
One of these, what kind of suitcases?
One of those giant Walmart suitcases.
And you were talking to Mr. DeGuerin about being in the pantry area?
Witness nods head up and down.
The court, you have to answer out loud.
You have to speak up for the record, sir.
What was the question?
What kind of suitcase are you talking about, sir?
I bought 5 of these big giant Walmart suitcases with the top. There's a zipper, so the top unzips.
All right, and when you went that second time, then was it still daylight, sir?
Oh, yes.
And what did you see relative to that suitcase when you got there, sir?
The suitcase was floating in the water, and the torso was floating in the water separately.
Well, Mr. Durst, what did you do next? Where did you go? What did you do after you saw that?
I went back to 2213 Avenue K.
Mr. Durst, even at that stage, did it occur to you anymore to call the police or just simply go hire a lawyer or do anything of that sort?
I don't think so.
Did you go to Avenue K when you got back?
I think the answer is I don't.
Do you remember in evidence here, there is a portion of a chronicle dated the 30th that came from somewhere in that area. Do you have any explanation for that?
I don't read the Chronicle. Remember, I might have briefly. I just don't remember.
Well, how long did you then hang around the 2213 Avenue K area, sir, or do you know?
Until it was dark.
When it got dark, what did you do?
After it got dark, at some time I went back to Channelview, and I saw that there were police cars down by the pier.
Well, when you saw that there were police cars there, sir, what went on in your mind? What did you think? What did you do?
I knew that my fingerprints would be on everything and that I would get caught.
Well, what did you do?
Oh, I went back to the San Luis Hotel.
What did you do after you went back to the San Luis?
I took sleeping pills.
The same halcyon you described before?
Yes, sir.
You've heard Miss De Enriquez, Maria, the lady upstairs, talk about seeing you on that day with 2 white bags. Do you recall coming into 2213K carrying any white grocery bags on that day?
No, sir.
Could it have happened?
I don't doubt it happened. I mean, sure, yes.
Were you smoking marijuana that day, sir?
Yes.
Well, then that takes us through Sunday, sir. You said you figured you were caught, and yet you went back and took sleeping pills and went to sleep?
Yes, sir.
What did you do the next morning? That would take us to Sunday, October the 1st, sir.
I had appointments in New York, doctor's appointments, perhaps 2 doctor's appointments. Debbie was expecting to see me, so I called and told Debbie I wasn't coming. And I canceled the doctor's appointments, and I canceled the plane reservations to New York in the morning.
There are phone records in evidence, I think, that will match relative to the doctors. Do you know a doctor by the name of Mitchell Castle?
I don't know if I'm probably supposed to say know him, but I had an appointment to see him.
How about Irvin Kolodny?
That's a sigmoidoscopy type doctor.
Well, relative to Dr. Matocha, did you have an appointment to see Dr. Matocha, or did you have glasses over there? What did you do relative to Dr. Matocha that day?
I don't know if I had an appointment or not, but I went to Dr. Matocha's office in the middle of the morning and had an eye exam.
Mr. Durst, I thought you told us you believed that you were, quote, caught, unquote. What kept you from just getting on the road and driving away?
I don't know.
Did you do anything else relative to the 2213 Avenue K apartments?
Yes, I had intended to go over there. Generally, things that were left in my apartment were the bicycle and the marijuana that I kept in the freezer.
How much more was in the freezer?
I could only guess, like 5 pounds maybe.
What did you do relative to that?
Well, first I went and I took the bicycle and put it in the car. And I realized there was some trash in the apartment that I wanted to throw out. I took the trash and I put it in the garbage bags in back of the property. And then I went back to get the marijuana out of the freezer.
When you took the garbage bags to the back, you say that took them back to the back of the property. Did you put them in the trash can?
Sure, I expect, yes.
Well, when you went to the freezer to get the marijuana, what happened?
The marijuana wasn't there.
What did you do next?
Well, I ran out of the apartment and I ran over to the church to get the money.
Did you get the money?
The money wasn't there either.
What did you do, sir?
Let's take our break. Ladies and gentlemen, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll return at 1:30 p.m.